What is Bitcoin? We will talk about why Bitcoin has changed the world, and we will talk about the future of Bitcoin and what the future holds. To understand what Bitcoin is, we need to talk about how Bitcoin was created. In fact, to look at the history of Bitcoin, Bitcoin was born out of a white paper that was published by an entity called Satoshi Nakamoto. I am calling it an entity because nobody really knows who or what Satoshi Nakamoto is. All we do know is that Satoshi Nakamoto, or an entity calling itself Satoshi Nakamoto, published a white paper in 2008 called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This white paper discussed the vision for what today we know as Bitcoin. The vision stemmed from the fact that, as Satoshi Nakamoto described it, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Let's understand exactly what is meant by this really powerful statement. When you look at George and Joanne being able to use Bitcoin and not needing the services of a third party, sending Bitcoins back and forth between them, or using Bitcoin to buy products or pay for services, it's a completely different way of looking at how money or the exchange of value is done worldwide. What Bitcoin has done is instead of having centralized entities like banks being able to control the transfer of something of value, such as money, Bitcoin is decentralized, and there is a decentralized network of thousands of computers all around the world which handle all of the transactions in Bitcoin. As a result, there is not a single centralized entity that can reject or stop any transactions in Bitcoin. The impact of Bitcoin is being felt in many ways, and it is changing the world in so many different aspects. For example, the country of El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. What that means is that in El Salvador, the official currencies are Bitcoin and the US dollar. What that means is that you can use Bitcoin for everyday activities and pay for things just as you would use US dollars, which is the other official coin in El Salvador. Now, when we look at this is just one way in which Bitcoin is changing the world. In fact, Bitcoin is being used in many normal everyday activities. In fact, cars are regularly sold in Bitcoin. What you see here is actually cars are being quoted in prices of using pounds or Bitcoins, and people can choose whether to pay in a local fiat currency as pounds are or pay in Bitcoins. It's a change, and it's just another way in which Bitcoin is interacting every day with the way we live our lives. Another clear example is that in New York City, real estate is being sold exclusively in Bitcoin in some cases. So for people that actually wish to purchase real estate, they can only purchase certain real estates if they pay using Bitcoin. These are just a few of the ways that Bitcoin is changing the world. Let's talk about cryptocurrency, because Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency, but it's only one, and there's more. And we will talk about what are cryptocurrencies. Then we will discuss Bitcoin versus altcoins. You see, Bitcoin is one type of cryptocurrency, but all other cryptocurrencies that are not Bitcoin are known as altcoins. We'll then talk about cryptocurrency use cases. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, but there are many other cryptocurrencies. But let's discuss exactly what a cryptocurrency is. I want to define a word which is blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology that enables many cryptocurrencies to exist. For example, Bitcoin has a blockchain. There's the Bitcoin blockchain. But there are other cryptocurrencies that also use blockchain. So once we have blockchain, which is the underlying technology that enables these cryptocurrencies to be built, you can create a cryptocurrency on top of the blockchain. So for this purpose, I want to talk about two specific coins. One of them is Bitcoin, the other one is Ethereum. Bitcoin has its own blockchain. Ethereum has its own blockchain. In the world of cryptocurrencies, this is known as a coin. A coin is a cryptocurrency that has its own blockchain. So Bitcoin is a coin because Bitcoin has its own blockchain. Ethereum, or rather Ether, is a coin because Ether actually is built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So the coin Ether is the cryptocurrency of Ethereum. So now we've established what blockchain technology is, which is the underlying technology. And then once you have blockchain, you can create coins on top of the blockchain. Let's talk about the next layer, which are tokens. because tokens are digital assets that can be built on top of a blockchain that already is able to have its own blockchain. Let me define that. Ether is the coin for Ethereum because Ether is actually running on the Ethereum blockchain. All transactions on Ether are actually transactions on the Ethereum blockchain. Ether is the coin of blockchain. However, a token can be created on top of Ethereum. So while Ethereum has its own coin, which is Ether, there are tokens which are also running on the Ethereum blockchain. Some key examples of digital tokens that run on Ethereum are Shiba Inu. Shiba Inu is what's known as an ERC20 token, and that ERC20 token is running on the Ethereum blockchain. Another very popular digital token is Mana, which is the cryptocurrency of the metaverse called Decentraland. So these are actually digital tokens that run on Ethereum. But you can also run NFTs. Some NFTs that are very popular which run on Ethereum are CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties. So now you see that we have the technology that underlies cryptocurrencies, the blockchain. You can then build on top of these blockchains, you can build coins, which are like Bitcoin and Ethereum. But some of these blockchains also enable you to create digital tokens that run on top of these blockchains. For example, Shiba Inu, Mana, CryptoPunks, and CryptoKitties. In this, we will be talking about Bitcoins versus altcoins. Bitcoin is the largest market cap cryptocurrency, but it was also the first cryptocurrency. And before there were all other cryptocurrencies, there was Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first decentralized cryptocurrency that ever existed, and as such, it stands on its own. Every other cryptocurrency you hear about is an altcoin. So there's Bitcoin and everything else is an altcoin. So when you hear about Ether, or you hear about Litecoin, or you hear about Ripple, or you hear about Dash, or you hear about Monero, or any other cryptocurrency, Shiba Inu, any other cryptocurrency, those are all altcoins. Bitcoin stands on its own. We will be talking about cryptocurrency use cases. Let's look at specific use cases, beginning with Bitcoin. When you think about Bitcoin, a very good way of using Bitcoin is to use it like cash. You can send Bitcoin to somebody, or you can get paid in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very, very easy way to be able to send digital payments to someone else over the internet. As we explained, when you use Bitcoin, you do not need to use the services of a third party, such as a bank, a credit card, or any type of service such as PayPal. You're using Bitcoin, and when you use Bitcoin, you can send Bitcoin directly to someone else over the internet. Now, this is just one use case of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin can be used for many more uses. But also, going on Surfware or going to 13 Tickets or G2A. Ethereum is a platform, and this platform, this blockchain, enables the use of smart contracts. We talked about tokens. You can create token smart contracts on Ethereum, and these token smart contracts create many opportunities. For example, non-fungible tokens or ERC20 tokens. Bitcoin enables you not only to send Bitcoins back and forth, but you can also pay for unique experiences and be able to participate in travel or also get into gaming. And when you go to other cryptocurrencies, for example, Ethereum, through the use of smart contracts, you can generate some very valuable experiences, such as being able to generate block certs. All of these are use cases in cryptocurrencies. We will be talking about NFTs or non-fungible tokens. You see, the term NFT is an acronym for the term non-fungible token. You need to understand what a token is. We will move on to fungibility. From there, we will move on to some key examples of what NFT tokens are. We will go on to NFT token use cases. What is a token? Let's talk about casino chips. What casino chips are is an asset that actually has value in the context of a special situation. Inside a casino, a chip, that is a plastic chip, can be worth some money and you can go and cash it in. That's what a casino chip enables you to do, is to have an asset that has some value in some specific context. So a casino chip has value if you're inside a casino. But if you go outside and you just use a casino chip for anything else, it doesn't really have that same value. A casino chip is designed to work within a casino. Since blockchain technology came and the advent of smart contracts enable the creation of digital tokens. These are digital tokens that can represent all sorts of issues, things like loyalty points or shares in a company or perhaps currency in some cases. Digital tokens actually are assets of value that are recorded on the blockchain. And because the blockchain uses cryptography to make sure that all that information is kept securely, every single transaction using digital tokens is recorded as transactions on the blockchain. And the blockchain is a very secure way to be able to protect the information recorded in those digital tokens. To understand what fungibility is, let's just explain with an example of something fungible. Money is fungible. What fungibility means is that when you have assets that are fungible, one asset of the same kind as another is worth exactly the same. So for instance, if I have to pay a debt and I need to pay $1,000, I can pay you with 10 $100 bills. It makes no difference to you which $100 bill I use, whether it's a new $100 bill or an old $100 bill. It makes no difference. Every $100 bill is worth exactly the same as another $100 bill. That's because they are fungible. When you look at digital assets, good examples of fungible are Bitcoin. If you're going to pay for something using Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is worth the same as another Bitcoin. It doesn't matter to you if I give you the first Bitcoin I ever received or the last Bitcoin I ever received. It makes no difference. Bitcoins are fungible. A non-fungible token is unique. So for example, an NFT of a cat that is recorded for one person owning it is completely different as a different NFT for a different cat that someone else has. Each one of them is unique. You see, a non-fungible token is one token that is different from all other tokens. It's this fungibility factor that differentiates a fungible asset such as a Bitcoin versus a non-fungible token, which is a token that is different from all others. Each non-fungible token is unique away from the other ones. You can have individual NFT tokens that can be worth a lot of money, far more than many others. For example, one NFT token sold for $69 million. That is a digital token that was auctioned and sold for $69 million. Not bad for a unique digital token. But when you think about these digital tokens or NFTs, there are many other ones that have also sold for millions of dollars. In fact, just to give you one example, I want to show you CryptoPunks. These CryptoPunks are a limited edition collection of a limited number of these CryptoPunk individual NFTs. And each one of these NFTs is completely different from the others. As a result, some NFTs and some CryptoPunks are worth millions of dollars, while others are not worth as much. This is what makes an NFT so special, because each one of them is truly unique and can command its own value. Let us look now at a use case of how NFTs are actually interacted with in the real world. To do that, let's use the use case of video games. For this example, I'm going to use a user that actually wants to play a video game called Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is a game where you can actually have these little creatures or Axies which you can purchase, and then you can battle, you can collect, and you can actually earn Axies by playing Axie Infinity. But for this specific example I want to give you, user A actually purchases an Axie. To be specific, he purchases a yellow Axie. That yellow Axie is an NFT that he is buying. As a result, because he has purchased this NFT, he is now the owner of this yellow Axie. That transaction where user A purchased this yellow Axie and became the owner of the yellow Axie is recorded on the blockchain. The blockchain now has a permanent record that user A is the owner of that specific NFT, which is a yellow Axie. Now let's go further. What happens as he plays the game? Let's assume that user A interacts with user B, and user B really likes that yellow Axie that user A has. Because user A is the owner of this yellow Axie, he can do business with user B and sell the yellow Axie to user B. You see, user B can purchase this digital asset from user A, and then at that point, the yellow Axie belongs to user B. And there is a record recorded on the blockchain that the new owner of that specific NFT yellow Axie is user B.